So we will base our topic about the modern art, contemporary art. So we know that contemporary art refers to art, namely painting, sculpture, photography, installation, performance, and video art produced today. Though seemingly simple, the details surrounding this definition are often a bit fuzzy, as different individuals' interpretation of today may widely and wildly vary. So I'll base my topic all about the conceptual art of Roberto Chabet. Roberto are called Bobby of their mother, Rodriguez Chabet. He was born on March 29, 1937, and he died exactly at April 30, 2013. He was 76 years old when he died. Bobby was an artist from the Philippines and widely acknowledged as the father of Philippine conceptual art. So, the father of Filipino conceptual art is Roberto Chabet, right? So, on 50 years, a year-long series on his work in partnership with a number of important galleries across Southeast Asia, including Osage in Hong Kong and ICA in Singapore. So, when he is 26 years old, he started the painting, his first solo exhibition. That's where he started his paintings already. Chabet is the father of the Philippine conceptual art and highly influential in the region. So, I first saw his installations in Hong Kong at Osage Gallery, where his stand-up mirrors within larger boxed mirrors revealed a keen play on perception and space. He experiments often with materials like plywood and glass, creating spatial, abstracted installation. At the Ateneo, his use of neon light reflected his own interest in language and painting. 10,000 paintings I must paint before I die suggest a field of black canvases existing only in potential. Even the use of English can be read as mildly political statement in a country first colonized by Spaniards, followed by Japanese and Americans. So we will go back about Roberto Chabet. So Roberto Chabet studied architecture at the University of Santo Tomas, where he graduated in 1961. He had his first solo exhibition at the Lost Gallery in the same year. So, 26 years of age. He had his first solo exhibition. He was the founding museum director of the Cultural Center of the Philippines and served there as curator from 1967 to 1970. So for 3 years, he served in the Cultural Center of the Philippines as a curator. He initiated the first 13 Artist Awards, giving recognition to young artists whose work show a resentment, a turning away from the past and familiar modes of art making. He led the 1970s conceptual art group called Shop 6 and taught for over 30 years at the UP College of Fine Arts. So, in 30 years, he teaches at the University of the Philippines College of Fine Arts, where he espoused an art practice that gave precedence to idea over form. Since the 1970s, he has been organizing landmarks exhibitions featuring works by young artists. Chabet described his piece as creature of memory, and himself as their custodian. His works are the result of a process of unraveling of fixed notions about art and meaning. Highly allegorical, his drawings, collages, sculptures, and installations question modernity. His works are meditations on space, the transitory nature of commonplace objects and the collision that occur with their displacement. Prolific and multifaceted, Chabet ventured into architecture, painting, printmaking, sculpture, stage designing, teaching, photograph- photography rather, and writing. So these are the series of Roberto or Bobby Rodriguez Chabet conceptual art. So enjoy.
Leandro Locsin (1928–1994) was in some ways a quintessential Renaissance man, a brilliant architecture designer, and classically trained pianist. Locsin was also a keen art collector, amazing a sizable collection of fine Chinese art and ceramics during his lifetime. It is for his buildings, however, that he is remembered, from the airport terminals to memorial chapels and centers to stock exchange structures. Locsin left his mark on the urban landscape of the Philippines. Locsin was determined to reconfigure Western architectural mores for the Filipino audience. His most substantial contribution to Filipino architecture is the Culture Center of the Philippines, a collection of 5 buildings that demonstrate the architects strive to find vernacular from the modernist architecture. The National Theatre building within the complex is a good example of Locsin trademark style known as floating volume. It is consists of 2-floor high block of travertine marble cantilevered 12 feet into the air. The theater hark back to traditional Filipino dwelling huts, but on a monumentally modern scale. Despite the wide range of building Locsin created, of all them have one thing in common: concrete. His ability to make these most monolithic of materials appeared weightless and too elegant, combined Western brutalism with vernacular elements, lead Locsin first to name him the poet of space.
In the 20th century, artists in naturalism sculpture moved away from traditional limb naturalism and human representation. Began the embrace modernism and sculpture. Sculpture in recent years has gained an ever wider definition in concepts such as land art and urban in the genre. Christianity provided a driving force for the production of sculpture with altarpieces and relief representing biblical scenes. Renaissance sculpture, in the study of present the glory in one idealized and realistic. During this period, artists like Donatello, Gilbert, and Michelangelo created masterpieces, including Donatello's Bronze David. In 1430 to 1440, Gilbert Gates and Paradise of Florence Baptist, and 1425, and Michelangelo's Marble Pita, and 1498 to 1499, and dated 1501 and 1504. Yes, civilization sculpture has been central to divisional practice. Found in sculpture as diverse as the Venus of Baghdad had around 230,000 to 700,000 BCE. Monumental Egyptian seen in 2558 to 2532 BC in the gold miniatures of pre-Columbian era. This is example of early divisional sculpture and social natural significance. The sculpture of the human body became practiced in the fine art academies in the 18th and 19th centuries in Royal.
So for our guide questions, we have here the first question is, what are the main influences to the art period? So artists are influenced by just about anything, their life, environment, childhood, school, work, television, movies, or other artists. The art era has become the instrument for us to know what it means to study. It is better when we know what it means so that we can get it easily and not so that it will be so difficult. Next question is number 2. What is or are the main characteristics of the art period? Is the period connected or in likeness to a previous period? Elaborate briefly. So, the principles of art include movement, unity, harmony, variety, balance, contrast, proportion, and pattern. The elements include texture, form, space, shape, color, value, and line. And for the last question, we have here the if what are the main artworks and artists of the period. So a work of art, artwork, art piece or art object is an artistic creation of aesthetic value, except for work of art, which may be used of any work regarded as art in its widest sense, including work from literature and music. These terms apply principally to tangible physical forms of visual art. An artist is defined as a person who creates paintings, sculpture, pieces of writing, music, dance, or variety of other types of creative products. A person who works in or is skilled in the techniques of any of the fine art, ESP, in painting, drawing, sculpture, and etc. So this answer is from Keanu Quino about the architecture.
Conceptual artists were influenced by the brutal simplicity of minimalism, but they rejected minimalism's embrace of the convention of sculpture and painting as mainstay of artistic production. For conceptual artists, art need not look like a traditional work of art or even take any physical form at all. Conceptual art, the process behind the work, is more important than the finished artwork. What are the characteristics of sculpture art? Sculpture art is mainly focused on ideas and purpose rather than the work of art. Painting, sculpture, and other variable objects. Conceptual art is art for which the idea or concept behind the work is more important than the finished art object. It emerged as art movement in 1960 and the term usually refers to art made from the mid 1960s to the mid 1970s.
What are the main influences to the art period? So Chabet referred to various sources for his work, not just art but also literature, film, science, history, etc. He also had high regard for the artwork of the early avant-garde of the 20th century, the Chomp, Mondrian, and the Russian constructivists. Second question. What is or are the main characteristics of the art period? Is the period connected or in likeness to a previous period? Elaborate briefly. So, Harley Sochabet is highly allegorical. His drawings, collages, sculptures, and installations question modernity. His works are meditation on space, the transitory nature of commonplace objects, and the collisions that occur with their displacement. So, in their period, um, the some they are connected also or in likeness. What did they call this one? Um, so in their period, wait lang. It's their period is connected to the previous period also for me. For me. So the third question is this is the last question. What are the main artworks and artists of the period? So the top 10 most famous Filipino artists and their masterworks. First is Fernando Amorsolo, born on 1892 and died in 1972. His masterwork is the Vargas Museum, found inside the campus of his alma mater, the University of the Philippines. Displays a notable selection of his work. Next is Jose Hoya, 1931 to 1995. So, his most notable painting from 1958 called Granadian Arabesque. Yes. Next is Pasita Abad, 1946 to 2004. She is noted to have worked on more than 5,000 pieces of art. Her masterwork being Alcaf Bridge, Singapore, a 55-meter bridge covered in over 2,000 colorful circles. Next is Ang Kyu Kok, 1935 to 2005. His notable works are represented in the Cultural Center of the Philippines, the National Historical Museum of Taipei, and the National Museum in Singapore. The Fisherman. Next is Benedicto Cabrera, 1942, and he's still alive. He, his artwork is Sabel in Blue, 2006. Next is Kidlat Tahimik, 1942, and also he is still living here in this beautiful world. His masterwork is um his masterwork is wait, um on Assumption Road. He created a massive artist village inspired by his first cafe. Um his his first cafe is I think Oh My Gulay. Yes. His artist cafe and vegetarian restaurant. Yes. Next is Eduardo Masferrer, 1909 to 1995. So his masterwork is Sagada. He made it on 19 in the year of 1952. Next is Agnes Arellano, 1949 and still present. His masterwork is Carcass. Carcass Cornucopia, 1987. Next is Roberto Chabat, the father of conceptual art, 1937 to 2013. So, the Roberto Chabat's One Thing After Another at the Mission House, Manila Biennial 2018. And he also describes himself as a custodian and his work as creators of memory. So last is Napoleon Abueva, 1930 to 2018. His masterwork is The Cross at Mount Samat, Bataan, completed in 1970. And that would be all. Thank you.